Tell me the circumstances for how you met Bob Odenkirk, because I find that fascinating.
So I had a friend, Maleva Barbula, and she said, my roommate, does comedy, and they do comedy at the Comedy Store every Sunday night, and they would put you up if I asked them to.
Based on what?
She goes, you're a really funny guy. Just because we hung out all the time, and I was constantly like making jokes, and she's like, you're really funny around the house, and when we hang out, have you ever thought about doing comedy? And it went so well that they said, come back 2 weeks later, and I went up again.
And were you up solo or with your friend?
I was with my friend who I'd moved up here from Orange County with. And that second week, that bit ended with me, as most of our bits did, me crying and running out of the theater in tears, as a bit. And as I ran off, Bob came up to my friend and said, hey, you guys are really funny. You should write on my show, Mr. Show. And at that point, I had gotten to know Bob's work. I went to go see some of the live shows that they did in order to get Mr. Show, and became very influenced by him, and was basically doing an imitation of Bob and David, the kind of thing they would be doing. Because
so he saw you doing it.
They saw me doing it, and when you're producing a show, you need material.
Right.
And they saw some people who were, doing something in their sensibility.
And it's like that Tony Robbins thing where, he says, sit the same way and copy the gestures of the person across
I've never
from you.
heard that.
And
wait, is that what I'm doing?
I know, right? Look at this.
Okay. This is a good
No,
bit.
but this
Welcome
is
to another episode of Good Bits.
So with relatively no experience, Bob sees you, hires you as a writer. You really hadn't written sketch, for the most part.
He wanted to hire us, but that was the first season, and I think they had enough material. So it actually took 3 years then for him to hire me. So in that 3 years, which was a good thing, I think, because if I were thrown into the deep end right away, I don't know if I would have survived. But for those 3 years, I then just did as much comedy as I could. And I did bits on stand-up shows as much as possible, put up my own sketch shows, rented theaters because places like the UCB weren't around.
So you would sort of be an organizer as well.
Yeah, so I found then you have to hustle and do it for yourself if you're gonna make stuff happen. And I was just putting up shows as much as I could to sort of not only learn how to do sketch, but say to him hey, remember when you said I should work on Mr. Show? Here's some stuff I'm doing.
I know that feeling of I don't want to ask him outright, but I want to connect all the dots.
But what I learned is I should have asked him outright, because the third season of Mr. Show came around, and I remember being very upset that another person got hired instead of me. But what that person did was wrote a sketch packet. And I thought I was auditioning in life and showing him that I was doing sketch all the time. And I thought he would, at that point, just be like, yeah, that guy, yeah, come on, let me hire you. And instead, this guy wrote, without any prompting, wrote a sketch packet of sketches that he thought would be good on the show and gave it to Bob after a show one day. And Bob read it and showed it to David, and they were like, these are perfect. Yeah, okay, you're hired. And so he got the job on the third season instead of me. And that's when I started realizing, I have to be a little more assertive.
Right.
And that's when I said hey, I would love to write on the next season if I could. And I wrote a packet, and a few of those sketches from the packet got onto the show. So, I think that's what happened finally is hey, we need these sketches because they're really funny. Let's hire Scott to be on the show.
Hey folks, thanks for watching. If you like what you just saw, then why not subscribe? Click right here for lots more off camera. And if you want to see the hour-long version of these conversations, I'm going to give you the secret link. Here it is, offcamera.com. Check it out.